Hey everybody, thanks for coming back. Phantom139 here, and it's time for another review video. So, welcome to the State of Destiny 2 video for August of 2023. We're going to take a peek at how Season of the Deep went and give my initial impressions on Season 22 today. Just a quick note, I'm not really going to talk final shape stuff today, since I'm actually planning on a separate video to talk about my thoughts on what was revealed. So let's go and jump in. We'll start by chatting about Season of the Deep. And before we actually do anything else, I'm going to prelude first with a very important figure that I want to draw back on a few times in this discussion here. This chart is from Scribbleox. It's a website that shows your heat time or how much Destiny you've played and when you've played. And it should be incredibly obvious right away what happened with Season of the Deep. And that should pretty much give you a good insight onto what I really thought about this season. So nothing here should be that surprising on how and why I rated. So let's go ahead and jump in, and we'll kind of talk about things as we go along here. So same scale as always. We'll start with the story, and I give 6 out of 10 for Season of the Deep. And this is about one of those only okay-ish things from the season, in my opinion. We had the return of Titan, and it wasn't actually a patrollable space, but more so it had 2 activities that you could kind of jump in and engage with it. We had Sloan come back, and we interacted with Sloan and the Leviathan, which was named Asa. And the goal was to learn about the portal and the Witness. And we also had our first interactions with Xivu Arath at the same time. There were 2 new activities, Salvage, which was the 6-player arena, and then Deep Dives, which was a weekly mission that had rotating elements and semi-random buffs. Unfortunately, although the seasonal vendor grid was removed from the season itself, it did unfold in a completely all too familiar pattern of drip-fed lore drops every Tuesday, with one of the worst offenses of the seasonal model happening in this season, where there was 1 week that the quest took all of 15 minutes to complete. I actually finished that and then immediately posted a video talking about the seasonal decline. So yeah, that the seasonal model burnout really hit hard this time around. Fishing was supposed to be a side knockoff this season, but there was no mechanics to it other than a frustrating reset mechanic, and at times very bad RNG that just soured the whole experience. And the only exotic mission of the season was locked behind it. I wasn't thrilled with how this season moved over time, and I really feel like the whole burnout of the seasonal model just fueled the rapid decline of my interest in the game and then just the story as a whole. Next up, Endgame, and wow, this is a kind of a shocker here, but usually you get much higher scores for the endgame here, but I'm dropping all the way down to a 2 here. First and foremost, I alluded to this in my Lightfall Thoughts video, but level delta capping effectively every activity in the game has all but removed any element of progression from the game. You're now forced to engage at a specific level, and that's it. If you can't do it, well, tough. And this basically dropped my friends list, and most of my clan just dropped the game. Like, it's a mix of hardcore and casuals in my clan, and casuals they couldn't do it, so they just stopped playing. This really killed all my interest in doing anything on Master this season, be it raids or even the new dungeon. I did the new dungeon on Master 1 time with the cheese that was going around, and I never touched it again. Like, I just did not care. Speaking of the dungeon, although I did give it praise for its aesthetics, the excessive shield mechanics at the start of the damage phase was probably one of the most frustrating solo dungeon experiences I have ever had to contend with. It wasn't challenging, it was just tedious and long. And then there was the long run, where, when you died and had to restart, well, there goes 10 minutes for the first encounter and another 10 minutes of running. So you're already talking about 20 minutes just to get another chance at the boss fight. Bungie's not going to do anything about this at this point. I mean, it's done, it's out, but please never do this again, Bungie. Don't ever do that again. About the only good in-game thing this season was the usual shakeup of Grandmasters, which offered the only fun aspect of challenge and, those usual funny moments that you had with the few remaining friends who were in the game. But even then, just the allure of Grandmasters is really starting to wear off. And, I don't think Battlegrounds is really helping that much either. I'm gonna be honest, sometimes I just want to get in the game, play with my friends, blow off some steam, and have fun mowing down crowds of enemies or melting boss health bars. High level content, you can't do that anymore. And it's the game is now being taken way too seriously. And I think this is where things have really gone terribly wrong this year. Grind wise, I will give Bungie a point bump for the grind up to 7 here. It is a little bit of a catch 22 with the whole power grind change. There wasn't a pinnacle delta increase this season, but at the same time, that removed the need to play any pinnacle activities, and therefore I just didn't. What also helped with this score here was the addition of the deep sight harmonizer to, kind of lower the pain of not getting those red box drops. But the only bad thing is locking them behind the season pass with a limit of 6 per season. I don't think that was a good idea. Other than that, nothing else really changed to the grind, so can't really offer any further feedback on that. For exotics, there were 3 new weapons: Centrifuge, the Navigator, and Wicked Implement. Centrifuge has some interesting arc synergy, and in a season that was focused on arc, it felt pretty good to run around this weapon for a bit. So I already talked about this before. I thought Centrifuge was fine, and if we ever get another arc season, then pull that one out. It'll probably be fun to use. The Navigator, when I finally got it, I did get to kind of play around with this one for a bit. It really feels like another one of those niche exotic weapons. It, adds a strand trace rifle to the game in the exotic category, but it didn't really feel like it has a purpose in a sandbox that is so heavily focused on quickly eliminating difficult targets. This weapon is much more of a slow burn or a point and shoot at allies for a couple seconds to give them woven mail. There's nothing else that's really fun about that. Finally, the scout rifle, Wicked Implement, it launched in a very or average state with a very heavy buildup to get to the effect and a very unnoticeable secondary effect. Like, I used it a couple times in GMs just to, play around with it. And, sure, it was neat and all, but it's like, yeah, I could use this gun, but I could use like 5 other guns to do the same thing and do it better. So, it's another one of those things that needed a buff. Bungie already buffed it, and I haven't really gotten around to playing with it that much after the buff. Armor-wise, talked about this a little bit before. Warlocks got Cenotaph, which grants a synergistic team play build with trace rifles. I actually did put a lot of playtime in with this one this season, and it had both good offensive and support capabilities. It allowed me to keep my trace rifle going the whole time while also generating heavy for my friends to pick up. I used both Divinity and Cold Heart with an arc build, and it was actually quite a bit of fun to paint targets, have my friends get heavy ammo, and then basically me not needing to reload, just keeping ionic traces flowing or just keeping the Divinity cage up. Hunters got Triton Vice. This was unfortunately one of those highly situational armor pieces that I really rail on as being bad. I wasn't a fan of this one since there are weapon perks which suited it much better than the damage effects offered by this piece. Also, the buildup of ammo felt very slow compared to so many other options that are out there. So I think this one's going to need a buff or a rework of some form. Titans, you got Arbor Warden. I talked about this one too. Convert your class ability into a throwable barricade charge, and then that charge would allow you to put a barricade wherever you threw your nade at. And if you had any aspects that altered the effect of your barricade, it would also apply to that barricade as well. So some very good defensive and support capabilities, but other than that, it didn't really feel like it was offering much. Another one of those like niche capability things. Gameplay, gonna pull up the map again, so the playtime heat map, and just this one goes hand in hand with the end game. So 2 out of 10, unfortunately. The end game has fallen very lackluster because it's been reduced to a checklist. Because of that, I had no interest in touching any master content this season. This was also the first time that I did not get a single ritual reset. I did not get any of the seasonal ritual weapon ornaments. I got the ritual weapon when I played like the first week of Iron Banner, and then I didn't even bother playing Banner again the rest of the season. I just had no motivation to play. Also, first time I never did all of the transmog bounties either. Like, I just did not care about playing the game. All of the changes to difficulty, it just pushed most of my friends away, and now I don't have friends to play with, so why do I care about playing? In conjunction, when Bungie said earlier that they were changing the seasonal model, I really felt like it meant a lot more than just, trying out some changes to the activity, like they were actually going to stop drip feeding story every week or make the quest like more engaging, but it really felt like another broken promise here. There were so many times where I would even just boot the game up, sit in orbit for a few minutes trying to think of something to do for fun, and then just quit. Like the excitement and joy from playing the game just faded away. The game is now so much more concerned about being challenging instead of being fun. And that's just one of those big drop off points that I feel like the game has fallen. Finally, I mean, I started with the Warlock video. Everyone's probably already seen it at this point. But it should come as absolutely no surprise that I was extremely disappointed in the Strand offering in Season of the Deep. I never used it a single time last season. Having to fight for Tangles when Titans had much stronger support options with Woven Mail, and when Suspend was just so much easier to proc with Mind Spun Invocation, meant that I just did not care about the Wonder. I'll talk about this a little bit in the upcoming video for the final shape thoughts, but it really feels like the creative energy just always fades away from one class at a time. First, Titans, I mean, you guys feel this probably all the time. All your supers are melee supers, and it's probably exciting that you're finally getting a range super. That's great and all, but now Warlocks have supers and aspects that Bungie themselves don't even seem excited about. Like, did you see the energy when they talked about the Titan super and the Hunter super? And then you look at the Warlock super and they're like, oh yeah, this exists. As the supposed summoner class for Strand, it honestly feels like I'm not doing anything summoning related. While hunters over here are throwing down shadow clones and sentient attack tangles. And what am I doing? Oh, here's a threadling every once in a while. You can just throw that on the list of why the gameplay just no longer excites me either. Finally, this is something I'm going to bring up in the next video for Bungie, but one thing I really think you ought to start considering doing is looking at subclasses that just don't feel great, and then using your seasonal artifact mods, like those fifth column artifact mods that give like a fun little bonus or fun little buff, like it's not too broken, and then just make that into an aspect. Like a good example, Thunderous Retort from last season. Kill an enemy with an arc ability, creates a jolting lightning bolt. That's got Stormcaller written all over it. So, I think you really should take things like that, look at whatever subclass is just underperforming, and then just turn it into an aspect and throw it on that subclass. I think having a more regular cadence of additions to subclasses would actually really help for the build crafting aspect of the game. And, even if the game doesn't feel great, at least that means there's new things coming that we can play with all the time. Finally, for the event, you do get a bump here. This is a little surprising with Solstice. 5 out of 10. Usually Solstice is like a very grindy festival. I will actually say I was really surprised to see that there was not an intense grind this year. I was able to finish it in like 2 days. I had actually like one of the really hardcore members of the clan. He finished it in like a couple hours of playing. And, it was nice to be able to not have to spend multiple weeks grinding stuff that I really didn't feel like doing. So thank you for that. Also, thank you for making it so you do it on one character and you're done on all three. I really feel like this should be the blueprint for event related difficulty and time commitment going forward. Like nothing felt really over the top or intense. It was good. Armor wise though, wasn't really a fan of the lacking in the VFX department. I know some people were happy that it wasn't like this very bright, intensive glow, but sometimes that's like the one set that I really look forward to a lot. I mean, obviously you can see it in like the video background. It's the set that I mostly use for like my Destiny things. So, all in all, just my opinions there. So all in all, 4 out of 10. And, it's right there with Drifter and Worthy. I'll admit it wasn't all doom and gloom. There were some things that Season the Deep did right, but there's just so many more things that it didn't. And I'm just gonna say right now, so many of the problems with the game right now can trace themselves right back to the bringing challenge back to Destiny blog. It's been nothing but downhill since that blog hit, and I really, really hope Bungie can sit down, take a look at this, and say, okay, look, the players aren't having fun anymore. This has gotten out of hand. Let's get rid of it. Also, the seasonal model has completely run its course at this point. Outside of blowing a seasonal activity or a seasonal event out of the water, I don't think anything's gonna get better in that regard. So, we've got this season and next season, probably not going to have too much going on, but at least they talked about shaking things up with this new episode system in the final shape. And, first glance, I really hope this does it better. I mean, from what they said, it does sound like it's going to do better, but, only time will tell at this point. Okay, so let's do a quick bit on season 22. So, Season of the Witch. We've only had a few days of it so far, so I can't really dive too deep into this, but I will offer some quick thoughts and feedback on what we've seen. We're picking up right where we left off, working with Amaru now to get information out of Savathun as it pertains to the portal, but unfortunately, we have another issue called Xivu Arath that has to be dealt with first. In order to solve this problem, Eris is becoming a hive god of vengeance to draw power to be able to defeat her, and we're basically tithing our defeated combats to her. Two new activities, Savathun Spire, Altars of Summoning. I've only done a little bit of each, so I can't really offer a full review. Spire looked to be the mission-esque weekly activity, even if the first weekly mission was in Altars. It has the usual multi-room engagement, which leads to a boss encounter, and then you're done. Mechanics did feel a little bit interesting with the different changes in the room element effects. Like, you had solar, which would burn you, arc, which would jolt you, and void, which actually would like pull you to the center of the room. So, a little interesting mix up to keep you on your feet. Altars, on the other hand, is a very good addition to the game. Buffs based on a deck of whispers you collect over the season, and an endless horde mode, or, a boss rush activity where you can choose how long you want to go, and seamless matchmaking to keep players in the activity when someone drops off. That's probably a really good thing, and I kind of want to see something like this just become part of the game normally going forward. And then there's the really good. I don't know whose hand to shake here, but thank you for putting a hive boomer in my hands. I've wanted more enemy weapons to make their way into the exotic arsenal for a very long time, and this was a very nice thing to see. Also, that reload stat, it's very nice if you catch my beat. So, thanks for that weapon. More of this, please. Armor-wise, exotics, this is exactly what I'm looking for. All three exotic armor pieces get the thumbs up here. Warlocks buff up Void Souls, and there is an incredible synergy where you can generate a Void Soul, drain enemies, and actually get enough energy to get another Void Soul on the field, recollect the one that's still draining, and then deploy it again. So you basically have endless Void Souls. Hunters, they got an exotic armor piece that interacts with the boomer weapon, and it also converts your grenade into a moth grenade where you get one arc moth and one void moth, and then the void moth actually buffs your teammates, so you get both attack and support capabilities. And then Titans got an exotic to alter their super to turn Burning Maul into a one-off. Finally, we're getting Crota next week. This is a raid I enjoyed a lot in Destiny 1, so I'm sure it'll get some healthy play time for me here in D2, but I mentioned this earlier already. I don't see myself sticking around too long for Master with Power Delta still in the game. This is probably going to be another thing that gets checklisted. It's another thing that, I'm going to finish the seal, get all the Adept guns, and then probably never touch Master Crota again. I'm sure they will change it up to make it more raid-like, but, again, this is just something that I feel like needs to really get changed. And, I will say I'm not a fan of, the whole, oh, we're going to make it harder. I mean, I said this in my Lightfall review. I think Root of Nightmares really should be the blueprint for a contest raid. Yes, I know people were bitching about it being too easy, but, not everything needs to be Dark Souls. We can already see what turning the game into Dark Souls is doing for the player counts. It's not doing good things. So, if anything, it should be less of this and more about making the game fun again. Exotic Mission Rotator. It's nice to see some of these exotic missions come back again. It's nice to go back to Presage. And it's also great to see that they're using the Rotator as a means to get the Dare's loot pool reduced a bit so it can be more focused. So we're putting the weapons back into these activities and to offer craftable forms of the respective exotics. This is something that I probably see myself doing for a bit, just at least until I get everything collected from it again. I really do hope that, we get Whisper and 0 Hour next year, but, again, only time will tell. That's probably going to be a lot of work for them. Strand aspect wise, I mentioned this briefly earlier, but I was feeling very, meh about the Warlock one. Sure, it had some incredible damage resistance for, 2 days? It's already disabled and will more than likely return in a significantly nerfed state. And I all but guarantee it will feel more terrible than it does now and absolutely not worth one fragment slot. And, it's probably going to take them a whole season to adjust that. So this one's probably going to be just like the Wanderer, where, I'm just going to bin it and not worry about it. Everything else about this aspect just doesn't excite me. It's just more threadlings, which even now still feel terrible, mainly due to the target tracking of them. And, they buffed the damage, but it still doesn't feel like enough. Now, Bungie did buff up the Wanderer from last season, but given the nerf to suspend and the fact that hunters now have a better tangle aspect compared to the Wanderer, it's likely also remaining in the bin. I should also throw in a quick little bug report here. Bungie did say that if you shot an aspect, it would turn into the Wanderer, and it does appear to do this, but it doesn't track a target. Like, all it does is it shoots straight up into the air and then blows up. So something that you might want to look into, Bungie. Once again, Titans and Hunters both got much more exciting and flashy options this season. Titans got Banner of War, which offers a growing buff and restoration effects, because Titans didn't have enough of this already with Solar, which is, why I think they gave the Burning Maul exotic armor piece as well. Hunters, wow. 2 seasons in a row, you guys got awesome stuff. It must feel great. Whirling Maelstrom turns your tangles into seeking orbs of unraveling destruction. I used this aspect when I was farming for the new arms, and it just tore through crowds of enemies and champions, and it's definitely a ton of fun. So, I mean, good for you guys. But, I'm just sitting in my corner like, that's cool. All in all, I mean, based on what we see so far, I don't really see this season being like a bad season. I don't think it's going to fall to the low playtime levels of Season of the Deep for me, but I don't think I'm going to be doing anything like I did from previous seasons. Lightfall just really soured the mood for a lot of the gameplay aspects for most of my clanmates and friends, which really pushed them away from the game. And, because a lot of my friends aren't playing the game anymore, I don't really feel like hopping on a lot. Now, the exotics do interest me a bit, but, short little tidbits of fun here and there. The subclass kits still feel very underwhelming, and all the additions that I've gotten this year outside of the original kit launching with Lightfall have done nothing to help this problem. It still feels very crappy. So there's my opinions on where the game sits currently. It's not in a great spot overall, owing mainly to the difficulty thing. But the new season does look to at least be starting on better footing compared to the last season. Next up for me, you'll probably see that the Final Shape Thoughts video coming out either a week or 2 from now. There's a couple things that I feel like I need to kind of spend some more time to talk about feedback-wise for the review of the Final Shape. Other than that, probably going to have another period of low activity from me with teaching resuming. There might be a video or 2 down the road with the free time I've got. I've got a lot of footage from last season to make videos from, and a couple of other games that I think you guys might actually enjoy watching. So in the meantime, that's going to do it for me for now. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.